I want to share the best vitamin to help shrink a fibroid. So, what is a fibroid? A fibroid is a growth, but it's not cancerous. Fibroids are the number one reason why women get hysterectomies. Fibroids are very, very common. I saw one reference that 20 to 50% of all women before the age of 50 have some type of growth or fibroid or endometriosis. So, first, let's start with the uterus. What is the uterus? Well, it's part muscle and part gland. You can look at the uterus like the soil where the seed or an egg implants and starts growing. And so it's really nutrient dense, it's rich, it feeds the egg once it's fertilized. And the uterus has incredible regenerative properties. I mean, researchers are now looking at how can they use that in different places in the body to help regenerate the tissues. The other thing that's fascinating about the uterus is that it has the ability to expand by 500x. And of course, I shared that information with my wife, Karen, and her reply was, "You think I don't know that after 3 kids?" So, of course, I quickly dropped that conversation. Here's the information I stumbled on relating to fibroids. There's been some studies that show that vitamin D can help reduce the size of a fibroid. Now, why would vitamin D actually help you shrink a fibroid? Vitamin D regulates the genes that control growth. And in one of the papers I found, the vitamin D receptor in a fibroid are very different versus normal uterus tissue. That means that the fibrous tissue is not going to receive as much vitamin D, which means it's going to have less control over the growth. I mean, if you think about it, vitamin D really isn't a vitamin. It's a hormone. When someone's vitamin D deficient, they're a lot more at risk of developing fibroids, and the uterus is very hormone sensitive. And so there's an enzyme called aromatase that converts androgens to estrogen. And so there's all sorts of remedies and even medications that can act as an aromatase inhibitor. And guess what? Vitamin D is a natural aromatase inhibitor. Also, vitamin D can create an effect on the fibroid itself. If you have enough vitamin D, certain tumors and even cancers will start committing suicide. Now, that is a normal process when a cell is damaged. But the thing about cancer and tumors, the problem with that is that somehow that controlled cell death, where the cell becomes damaged and starts committing suicide, and now the cancer cell, the tumor cell just keeps growing, growing, growing. But vitamin D can help increase that apoptosis in the fibroid. Now, I'm going to explain how much vitamin D to take to create this effect, but I just wanted to mention a Dr. Bruce Hollis, who basically did a lot of the original research on vitamin D. And he's a professor and he has over 500 papers, okay, mostly related to vitamin D. And in some of his videos, it's very interesting because this is what he said. He said that a lot of the positive result type studies in vitamin D are rejected by the top journals. And he left me with an impression that it's almost as if they don't want people to know about this positive vitamin D effect. Now, relating to that, I want to bring up another study. It's a quite large study, which was called the VITAL study. So this was a study involving 25,000 adults. It's a quite large study. And apparently it was no benefit to vitamin D or omega-3 in reducing major cardiovascular events or cancer. If we actually read the study, there's a couple things about this study that's a little fishy. The analysis of the study excluded the first 2 years of follow-up, which showed significant reduction of cancer. Number 2, if you separate out the people that actually weren't overweight versus the overweight and obese people, there was a much lower risk of getting cancer for the people that had normal weight. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is because people that are obese or overweight need more vitamin D because vitamin D gets stored in the fat cells. And if someone is obese, that vitamin D is going to be diluted. They also admitted some limitations. One is there was only 1 dose of vitamin D per day. You think 10,000? No, 2,000 IUs. They're calling 2,000 IUs high dose vitamin D. Also, there's data to indicate that they really did not follow the criteria for a true randomized placebo controlled trial. They also omitted the information on exposure to sun, how much people were outside versus inside. They didn't follow up and assess vitamin D in 94% of the participants. So, what would I do if I had a fibroid? I would take about 50,000 IUs of vitamin D. Now, I know what you're thinking. Boy, that's a lot. That's a toxic amount. What am I going to do about the side effects of that, etc.? But if you take vitamin K2, you take magnesium, zinc, boron, vitamin B6, these are all the cofactors that protect you against hypercalcemia, too much calcium in the blood. And if you're taking 50,000 IUs of vitamin D3 every day, the amount of K2 that you would need, I would take about 500 micrograms with that. I would also take 800 milligrams of magnesium, very important. Magnesium will help reduce the calcium formation. I would also take 50 milligrams of zinc. And then I would also take vitamin B6 and boron. And as far as the amounts, whatever's recommended on the bottle. I would also get on the ketogenic diet. Why? To reduce my insulin, because insulin can actually increase the growth of fibroids. And lastly, I would be consuming a good amount of cruciferous vegetables to help any other things that can mimic estrogen. Also, I would limit the amount of milk you consume. Milk is used to grow a calf, so there's a lot of growth factors, but also the calcium in milk, right, can be another situation that you want to reduce if you're taking a lot of vitamin D. And the next video you really need to know about is this vitamin D toxicity topic. I don't even believe vitamin D toxicity comes from the vitamin D. I think it's the lack of cofactors. And for that information, check out this video right here.